Hello, Doodle Crew friends, and welcome back. We've got another amazing interview set for you today. Today, I am sitting down with the awesome Kristen, and it's a little bit of a joke because both of us have had crazy summers, but we finally found time to get together and actually do this interview. So, hi, Kristen, welcome.
Hi, Emily. Thank you.
Yeah. So, as I've been kicking off all of these with, do you remember how did we meet?
I do remember. I think you and I probably have different memories of how we met, though. I don't know. You'll have to correct me. My memory was from AIP, obviously. I was thrown into a upper level 3D class before any intro classes. And I was a new freshman, and I know that you were like ahead of us. And I sat between you and Idaho, who I know you also interviewed. And I remember the Keah taught this class, and he was like, okay, open 3ds Max. And I was like, turning to you or Idaho, I'm like, what's 3ds Max? Like it was that much of a upper level class, and I was so new. I didn't even know what the program was that the class was about. And that was my first memory of you, was you sitting next to me, Idaho on the other side, knowing this program and at least knowing the basics of it, and me having to go, how do you make a box? Where did you get that menu? Like, that was my first memory.
Gosh.
And I was a scared little kid. I remember this class was just like way over my head. It was actually a camera and lighting class, which I give a lot of credit is probably why I like camera and lighting the most when it comes to 3D, was because that was literally my first exposure. So that was my first memory of you, was being very tolerant of this newbie sitting next to you, asking what the class was even about. Like, I probably got a lot of eye rolls that day, but that was my first memory of both you and Idaho. Like, I met you both on the same day.
That's so funny because
totally understand if you don't remember it, because that class was a lot.
So I was never great at 3D. So like the concept of me having any idea what I was doing was a very low bar in 3D, because I constantly felt like I was a fish out of water. I'm like, I don't understand this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. Keah, why are we doing this? I'm so bad at this. So.
But to be fair, I set the bar super low, asking what the icon looked like for the program. So like that was how low and how little I knew. I thought it was a I thought it was a camera and lighting class, like physical cameras and physical lighting, which I was super excited for because I already knew that. Nope, it was 3D. That wasn't on the description, and for some reason they put me in this like definitely above level before I got my entry level 3D. So yeah, that was my first memory of you. Was that?
I'm glad it was good though. Like that, I feel like in that situation I was probably already stressed, so I'm glad I wasn't terrible. But yeah, I feel like that was an unfortunate part of the Art Institute, where like they weren't always great about making sure you were in the classes that you were supposed to be in at the level you were supposed to enter them in.
Or at least if I was given that and then the intro class in the same quarter, maybe give me the intro class on like a Tuesday and this on a Friday. So at least, again, I knew the basics of what I was doing. Yeah. But that whole day is emblazoned in my mind because it was just nothing but sheer panic. So yeah, I will never forget Keah, you, or Idaho for that reason. Because that was just like a big day. That was like my first college class, and it was something that I couldn't even handle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's And I again, kudos to Keah. So we keep referencing Keah. Keah is the name of one of our teachers from college, and just absolute kudos to him, because boy, I think he did a lot of hand holding with us because we didn't have any idea what we were doing for a lot of the time. Oh gosh.
He was really good about like, guiding us through easily and not making us feel foolish for not knowing things. Like,
yeah, absolute kudos. So that it makes it easy, because that definitely answers the next question to the audience who know. Yes, both Kristen and I are Art Institute people, Art Institute of Pittsburgh alumni people. That's the words I wanted. So yeah, we both got to experience that. Yeah, I remember it was very cool. Definitely not my first memory, but I remember looking on in awe with the project that you worked on with Randall for your production project. I'm sorry, the cat is being crazy.
Oh yeah.
Because it was just this incredible thing, which, as we always talk about, look back now, we're just like, oh, it's so bad. We did so many things. Oh God. But like, it was so cool. And I was just like, wow, they're doing a lot.
We bit off a lot in that project, but I, like you say how you look back and you're cringe, and I absolutely do, like, wow, if I knew then what I know now. But I'm also still very proud of what we got done and how well our group functioned together and how like structured we were without even setting up a structure. Like, you know, who's the director, who's the producer. Like, we didn't even do that. We're just like, okay, you have this role, you have that role, and we managed to get it done. It's a bit of a blur, but yes, that was fun. That
awesome.
project with Randall. But yeah, definitely AIP alumni. And as I mentioned, you were a few quarters ahead. I know that I came in, I think, either a couple quarters or maybe even a year after you. I know that you were ahead of me.
Yeah, and it was, but I definitely was weird because I also pushed and I was doing like the maximum number of classes per quarter. So I did my 4 years in 3, which I don't recommend to anybody because that was bananas.
That was their original setup and it was kooky.
Yeah, nope. Highly don't recommend. Don't do it, kids.
Your sanity is not worth the sacrifice of just saying, I got a 4-year degree in 3. Like, that's a good thing to say. Sleep's also good.
Sleep is so good. I needed it after those 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before you ended up at the Art Institute, how long had you been making art? And like, when did you really start making art?
I guess it depends on what you constitute as art. Like, you know, every kid draws, and I actually am very fortunate. My mother is a fine artist. She has a degree in fine art, and then she also does a lot of commissions, mainly acrylic and watercolor. So I grew up with a parent who was very versed in art, and I always had really great exposure. She taught me perspective from a really young age and color theory and all this great stuff. So I always drew, even as a kid, with that like artistic sort of aspect to it, not just a kid getting their ideas down, but also like, I want to create a really good piece of art that has balance and color theory and negative space, because I actually knew those terms growing up. So always drawing, you know, things in my head. But oh, hi. You gonna join the stream? Speaking of, hi. How about you go over here? There we go. You can hang out over there. Don't show your butt. So, but I didn't start drawing what I would consider commercially, and therefore more in line with my degree and my like career until I went to high school. I went to a vocational high school that actually had a multimedia digital design, which was kind of like a commercial, and this was a really good school because it actually let us graduate with an associate's degree straight out of high school if we like did all the credits and everything. So I got that out of my hair right away, like that under my belt. So I was able to get a graphic design associate's degree pretty much straight away. And that taught me how to do, like, again, what I would consider my career art. I remember going in for the like test day where they bring in high school kids and they're like, look, this is what you could do for life. And I sat down at a student computer and I opened Photoshop for the first time. And I just like, I remember going home to my parents like in awe, like, I have to go here. This one program is enough reason for me to go. They're going to teach me this Photoshop magic and digital coloring, digital painting, graphic design, logo design, web design, just like all this stuff at once. So I would consider drawing all the time as a kid, but not for my career until that sophomore year of high school. And then it was just from there, I was like, yeah, commercial art, yay.
That's really cool though. And I think you're definitely the only one out of everybody I've talked to who had like that type of setup and that opportunity, but that's really, really awesome. And I am all for like vocational and tech schools, especially for kids who know what they want, like to have that more focused option for education is incredible.
And also just having, even going into college and having some of it under your belt already, like already knowing a little bit of Photoshop or After Effects, or even just the basics of design, negative space, color theory, all that. And I know a lot of high schools are teaching that these days, like in a general sense, but I always highly recommend like getting into that early, even doing like tutorials on your own. But yeah, I eternally grateful to Erin Howell from my high school who talked me into taking this multimedia course instead of the culinary course, because I almost did that. But nope, I decided to take the multimedia one, and she I would say if there's a moment in my life that was like a pinnacle decision, it was that, like making sure I took that graphic design course.
That's funny. Like,
or
what an incredible thing to look back on. Which we did also have at our school, but
we did, yes.
Funny. So as we talk about professional art and doing that, is art right now your primary job, your career that you have?
So yes, as a career, I would say my main job is I work at a TV studio in New York City, and I work on various shows. It's a outsourcing house, but they'll get in shows from a lot of live action networks, and they just need some motion graphics, graphic design sort of work to it. Sometimes they need some animation to it, but for the most part, it's just working on television graphics. And then I also teach for the same sort of thing. I teach Photoshop, After Effects, video editing, color theory at a college in my area as well. So I do, I guess, technically have two jobs you could consider, but both of them are within my field. Or I guess one's in my field, one is teaching for my field. I think that counts.
But I feel like what's cool, and I don't know if we've covered this specifically in the interview series, but the thing that actually attracted me to the Art Institute was that their big thing was all of their instructors had been career professionals or were still career professionals. Like these were people who were working in the industry. So I think especially for the tech art fields, which a lot of us are in, having someone who is also either concurrently or has worked in that field, you get a different knowledge base, and that is so, so valuable. And it's nothing against people who have only been in education. It's just they have a real world application to it that sometimes you can't get just in the classroom. So I think that's incredibly valuable to your students.
And something to pass on, because this was news to me, I knew from high school, from the tutor lab where you and I obviously knew each other the best from. I knew from then that I wanted to eventually go into teaching, but I thought it'd have to be like a master's degree sort of thing. I learned that some states, obviously my state included, you can teach college level without a master's degree if you have at least 10 years of unbroken experience within the industry that you want to teach. So that was a huge boon to me. That meant that I didn't have to, not that I wouldn't get a master's if I had the opportunity, but that I didn't have to in order to teach. Now I still had to do the accreditation and everything, which is just, credits per hour sort of thing, which hopefully I'll get that soon. But other than that, it's actually not hard, again, as long as you have that experience. So not only is it better to have teachers with experience, I 100% agree with you, but the system recognizes that. And or at least some states are allowing teachers to come forward with that.
That's really cool. I'm happy to hear that. I did not know that. So that's awesome.
Again, check the state. It's not for everyone. I know it's for like the tri-state area for me though. So that's lucky. But yeah, so, ASU was really good about that.
Yeah. So you've talked about a few different things, and it was definitely like when you start talking about like commercial art aspects of it, like that's definitely been something you have had for a while. Like, was it getting into the vocational school that helped you find your niche, or was that actually like once you found your way there, once you started playing in Photoshop, you're like, nope, not only do I like this, like I love it, and this is where I want to live?
Oh, it was absolutely that. Prior to discovering Photoshop, I was drawing on notebook paper with colored pencils, and I was drawing every day, a lot of my own art, a lot of fan art, pretty much a lot of, at that time, I thought I wanted to go into writing. So it was more so just getting my ideas down style drawing. But once I found Photoshop, once I found other mediums besides colored pencil, like not Crayola markers, but like nice markers, like Tria markers. Yeah. Once I found rapidograph pens, once I found like the good art supplies, and once I found techniques, like again, recognizing good typography, recognizing balance, like it was just, oh, this is it for me. My mom being a fine artist, that was all the exposure I had. And I wasn't really interested in trying to make something look like a photograph paint wise. Like that just wasn't, I wanted to do more like fantasy, more color. So when I found, again, Photoshop was the gateway, but once I found that whole world of commercial art, I'm like, no, this gels with me. Like this is my area. This fits my brain. And even like the boring stuff, like logo design, I still kind of enjoy that too. It's almost like a puzzle, like taking a complex idea and making it simple.
Yes,
so,
I love
I
that description of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the puzzle aspect of graphic design, where you have to like take what the client wants or like limitations of the software or whatever and like make it fit. I love that puzzle. So yeah, I fit right in with graphic design. And then when I started to do animation, it was just like, it's moving graphic design. This is great.
No, and I love the way you talk about it, because it is such a special feeling to have been exposed to a ton of art and enjoyed a ton of art. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, this is it. This makes sense. And it is such a cool feeling. I didn't get it until actually after college, when I fell into making comics, where all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, it's the character design, it's the storyboarding, it's all the stuff I loved from animation, but now I can do it on my own and I can tell these great stories. And like, but it was that aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the thing I was looking for. And now it just fits and it makes so much sense. So I love that.
that does make a lot of sense. Yeah. Because I guess it would. Yeah. It's just storyboarding. It's just telling the story, the shadows, the lighting, but then you stop there and you don't go forward and actually do the hard part of animating, which is like the stressful part. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for me it was.
Oh, good.
I was gonna say, I was hearkening back to the when we first met question. Just like discovering Photoshop in high school, discovering 3ds Max's lighting abilities that first day of my first class in college is why I like lighting so much. So when I do 3D, it is mainly like environments, lighting, and everything. So yeah, it's also that it clicks. It's something that I don't have to think as much about. It's just like, oh, do it this way.
Yeah. And
so I kind of understand what you're saying. Yeah.
There's a difference too between like a scene or a design, like a logo, or even like lighting a scene, like something being difficult and challenging because the scene itself is. And then there's something about the technical aspects being difficult. Like I was never comfortable living in the 3D Max world. I liked doing certain stuff once I was in it, but I didn't like a lot of it. And I never felt at home there. But some of the things I learned, I could then take that and use them. Like, okay, so if I'm thinking about, just like we talked about the lighting class, thinking about lighting this room, the computer is giving me different options for how light affects this 3D space. That still works when I'm creating my own 2D space, but trying to make it look 3D. Like those elements then clicked more, but I was like, but I can do this so much faster, so much easier in 2D because that's what makes sense in my brain. So.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, you don't want to live in a 3D world, but learning aspects of it help you a little bit in the 2D world. Like I've noticed, I mean, you're probably the same way, even if I'm not spending like all day, every day in 3D, which I used to. That was one of my jobs, was all day, every day in 3ds Max. But now I can think of objects in a 3D space much easier because I have that experience with 3ds Max. So if I need to like fit something in a car, let's say, and I can just look at it and I can like in my mind Tetris puzzle piece it because I have such a good concept of volume because of 3ds Max. Like the same thing for you with the lighting, like that makes a ton of sense now. The 3ds Max, the lighting translated to a different medium, even though the two will never touch.
Yeah.
Like physically touch, but you take that knowledge. It's, I love that stuff. I love that kind of stuff when it like crosses disciplines. The education just crosses disciplines.
I think it's very rewarding as someone who is also an educator. Like, it is really nice to me when I can pull from these different things. And it's, even for, obviously I teach younger kids than you do, but it's even if you might not use this exact thing that I'm teaching you, there might be elements of it that end up helping you in your art career later on. And that is so valuable to me that's a humongous win from an instructor side. And I will absolutely take that win.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's exactly why they try to ingrain life drawing into us, because we're like, well, we're never going to draw realistic human proportions, and it's like, yeah, but you're gonna use that anatomy knowledge one day. And so now knowing that and recognizing that in other things, like you with 3D, like me as well, I can look back at our school days and be like, okay, they were right. Like, fine, I acknowledge it now.
Yep. Nope. There's so much of that where I was just like, rats. You were right. I wish I would have, wish I knew then what I know now. But it's still.
And they tried to tell us. To be fair, they did try to explain it, but unless you physically experience it, it was hard to get the neurons to click there.
Yes. Yes. I was like, we got there eventually.
We got there eventually, right?
We did. Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for putting up with us. 10 years later, we are finally figuring it out.
There is so much I wish I knew then when I know now thing. Like, if I could just go back and redo so much stuff, that'd be so nice.
My gosh. My projects would be so much better. I was like, oh man, I had some good ideas and I just didn't capitalize on them. But oh well. So speaking of projects, what is a project that you are personally proud of? Either something from college or something you've done since?
Well, I mean, there was like a handful in college. Obviously, the Curve, which was the name of our pre-production one. As I already mentioned, like, even though it's cringing, I will never watch it again unless like threatened to the point of death. I'm so proud of like what we did, because it was a large undertaking for students to do. In terms of projects though, forward, let me see. It was ages ago, over 10 years now, but I'm still pretty proud of some of the Guitar Hero levels I worked on, only because after putting in my grind for so many years, I actually got recognition from the art directors, and they're like, okay, you have a good handle of how we have to do these levels. What would you like to do if you could create a level? And I made the top of the PPG place building in Pittsburgh. That was one of the Guitar Hero levels I made. I made one that was like this Skittles factory, because that's when the Skittle commercials were out. I made so I just like that I'm still really proud of these levels where it wasn't just the game designers saying, okay, we're going to do, like a subway tunnel, or we're going to do, like Times Square. It was, okay, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to do the top of the Mayan ruins, Chichen Itza in Mexico. Like, that's what I want to do. And they're like, okay, here. I'm still really proud of those, because they came out exactly as I envisioned. And it was the first time, obviously outside of school, it was the first time that I was ever given complete trust by the producer, by the director, by the art lead, and just told, we know you can do this. Here's like our milestones. Go, Freebird, just do it. And that was like so rewarding for me, because it meant, because I suffer from like horrible confidence issues with my art. So that was the first like huge boost I ever got, was just being told, yep, just go. Which, for anyone who has worked in any sort of like large industry, video games or otherwise, that's kind of the norm. Like, it should be that the art director or the lead can just say, here's what we need you to do it. And while I understand that that's the norm at the time, it was still like a really big thing for me. The first time that I was kind of like let go of the reins and just trusted enough to just do it and get it done and have it look amazing. So I'm still really proud of that, even though those games are quite old now and no one plays them anymore.
No, but that's awesome. That's really, really awesome.
And I still think about them from time to time.
Yeah. Well, and that's that feeling is so important. Like I love, again, I'm enjoying the way you're describing it, because it's such a relatable thing, even to people who aren't in the art industry. Like having a manager, having your project manager recognize you, that like, no, I trust you. I've seen your skills. I've seen you utilize this, that, the other thing. Like, go, because you can do it. Like, that is an incredible feeling, no matter what you're producing. Yeah. So it's tremendous. And it speaks to the quality of the art directors and the managers, because that is a skill set that you need to have as a leader.
Mm-hmm. And also for them to not be like micromanaging and make it like their envision, like they understand to trust their artists, which is good for them. And then also us as artists, it gives us a lot more encouragement, because I think they understood that artists kind of need that sometimes. Some artists need their hand held. Some artists need that freedom. And I even tell my students now, the ones that are either going straight into the industry, and even some that might pursue further academics, that's a big decision to make. Do they want their hand held, or do they want to just be given complete creative freedom? Because I've worked at plenty of jobs where there is no creative freedom. You are given a very, very strict design list. You have to do A, B, and C to the exact criteria. There's no reshape in the box there. And then I've had other ones where they're like, we just need it blue. Like, so that's a big decision. There's job security, there's, what the actual thing is you're working on, but then there's also how much creative freedom. And it wasn't until I was finally given creative freedom that I realized, wow, I kind of need this. Like, again, to feel not only successful as an artist, but also just to give myself that confidence. So while I've worked at jobs who have no creative freedom, I did not stay at them for very long. And I have stayed more at the jobs that I had a director just trust me and say, we need this, go. So that's always awesome. Something I tell my students. Big decision.
It is. And I think it's very important, because just like you, I don't know if I knew coming out of school what I needed until I had the opportunity to lead my own, project, whatever it was working on, or, be directly under somebody who told me exactly what to do. And I was like, oh, this is what I need to be the most successful, the most productive. Like, here's how you're going to get the best art out of me. And I don't know if I could have told you that until I was in the situation to articulate it. But now going forward, I was like, no, if you're bringing me on as an art person, here's how you'll get the most bang for your buck out of hiring me. And it helps. It absolutely
That's helps. A powerful phrase to take to a director. Like, here's what I need, not just what I can provide for you, but also you as a person hiring me, here's what I need. Like, that's a powerful thing to take, because again, they probably don't run into that, and it might be a little freeing on the director's side of things too.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Like, only the bad ones would take that negatively. Like, hopefully they understand the artist's creative freedom. In fact, kind of off of what you were saying with the being able to tell someone exactly what type of person you are, like what type of artist, and then not knowing what you were. I mean, not to get negative, but I kind of don't believe younger artists, students especially, who say, no, I'm the type that needs this. It's like, until you get in the industry and you have real stakes at, until you have real things that need to be handled and not just a grade to worry about, it's hard to know what kind of artist you are. Like, it just is one of those things where you have to experience it. You can know yourself, you can know how you handle stressful situations, but even then it's like hard to judge right out of the gate. Yeah. So students have to be patient with themselves, and I think it's healthy for them to admit, like, yeah, I don't know what type of artist I am. Am I working from home better? Do I have to work in an office? Do I need someone to hold my hand, or can I just be given complete creative freedom?
Yeah, all of that exactly.
Yes. Yeah, we're kind of coming from the same sort of venue here with the teaching.
Yeah. Which is good. It is encouraging, because it can feel just like being a work from home artist or a freelancer. It can feel very isolating being a teacher sometimes in the art field. So it is always nice to hear, even like I said, I'm usually dealing with like middle school and high schoolers. So to know that, nope, pretty much from when I get them all the way up to when you're getting them in college, like, nope, this is a consistent thing.
Yeah. Kids are kids, and they get smarter and bigger, but until they get that real world experience, they're still kids. Like, I don't mean it to sound demeaning, but it's like, never underestimate how vitally important just real world skills and real world experience are. Like, you never really grow up until you have them, I guess.
Yes. No, exactly. That's awesome.
More of today.
So we talked about Photoshop, but I want to circle around to something else. What is another medium that you really love working in?
So if we're talking specifically just art, obviously I mainly do digital art now. I love doing markers. I have not done markers for many years, but I like the permanentness. Is that the word? The permanence of it. I like how they can be blended, but they're not quite as textury as colored pencils are, or crayons are, or charcoal or anything else. But they're a little bit more malleable than, let's say, watercolor, because after a time you can still wipe a marker off where you can't do watercolor. So it's like a weird blend of colored pencil and watercolor in terms of like how they can function.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like the look of marker a lot. It's very time sensitive. It's like watercolor, you have to wait for it to dry. Acrylics, you have to wait for it to dry. Colored pencils or crayons, you can pick them up at any time, even pastels. But markers are like, no, you got to get this done fast because that alcohol base is drying. And if you don't, you've ruined that color mixture. It is so speedy, and it makes me not focus on every little aspect of it. It's like I need to give myself that time limit, or else I overthink it, if that makes sense. So I like markers for the look of it, but I also like it because it's challenging to me.
No,
there was actually,
that's awesome.
In high school, obviously, as many people do, I drew with pencil. And then when I got into college, all the teachers, especially the life drawing teachers, were like, you should never erase. You should lightly sketch and then only, use a hard pressure when it's the line that you want. You shouldn't waste the time erasing. That also makes your brain continue moving forward. If you erase, you're kind of backstepping. So I took that to heart. I started to only ever draw on ballpoint and marker, and I used mediums that would never use an eraser. So that's kind of like a long answer to, I like marker because you have to commit. And commitment is one of the things I am super hard at doing. So I make myself. I'm giving myself a medium that it's done. It's there. Sharpie. And no coming back from a Sharpie.
Exactly. And there is a weird freeing aspect of that where I know I found it a lot in digital art, because literally in digital art, it's not layering up paint. It's whatever my computer can handle processor wise. I can work on this piece until I die and it'll never be done. And, that can be, it can be maddening. But with, like you said, with marker, at a certain point, you're just done. There is no more else you can do, and you have to walk away. Whether you're happy or not, that's almost not the important thing. It's like, no, it's done. And that's the end. And that's okay. Like, that's a huge thing. So, no, I get that. And it's very similar to why I like marker.
When your paper is soggy, once the paper's too soggy, like, that's it. You have to be done.
It's choosing for you. Like, nope, we've decided now the paper is completely saturated. We're all done.
I will say I'm a little bit of a coward, and I have not used marker in many years. I still have all my markers. I keep them nice and tell myself I will eventually. But digital art is just so much cleaner. You can work on it anywhere. So as much as I say I like marker, I'm a bad marker mom, and I haven't used the markers. I tell.
So as we talk about that, what is a medium that actually scares you? Either like, I know that there's that stress element to marker, but one, like, what's another one where you're just almost too afraid to work in, or every time you work in it, it's a very stressful experience?
Chalk pastel, can't do it.
Ah.
Anything where it just like smears all over your arm and you can't touch the paper. Like with marker, you can't touch the paper, but then you can put a piece of paper down over it and that's what your hand sits on. Pastel, like you can't even put pressure on the canvas. And what if I trip and I fall and there's now two handprints, or it's the dust, like it just like it gets everywhere. And then if you don't see it and you pick up one pastel, but it has like the shavings of another color on it, it just, there's so much involved with chalk pastels and they get everywhere. And it's not the permanency of them. It's that I feel it's really hard to make it look not messy when I do it. Other people can do it just fine. Also, the idea like spraying it down afterwards, I don't know. I can't do charcoal and chalk pastels. Any of those very fine, there's a word for it, like any of those fine pressed powder mediums just are so out of my wheelhouse. Just no.
Nope, I feel you.
I see people doing like when they do the life drawing and they have like the big easel and they just like taking their charcoal and it looks amazing. I love the look of charcoal. Desperately love it. Freaks me out. Just no.
Nope. At that point, I would rather open up Procreate and pick the charcoal brush option and draw in charcoal in my digital art program and count it good, and that's close enough for me.
Right? If there's anyone who also feels the same way about charcoal, scared to use it, scared like it breaks and it fragments and all that, I found a really nice medium that gives me that sort of charcoaly feel without being the like pressed powder mess, and it's China markers. They probably have another name. Oh. I've only ever known them as China markers. They come wrapped up like a pencil, but you have to unwrap them by like literally unwrapping the piece of paper wrapped around them. And they have more of a waxy feel than a pressed powder. So kind of like a crayon, but they run a lot smoother. Like a Conti crayon almost. So China markers are my go-to when I have to do charcoal, but I don't have the mental preparation for them.
No, that's good. And again, I am even aware that I know there's so many different cool art supplies out there that I probably would really enjoy, and I just don't even know about them because there's a limit to not only what I can spend my money on, but what I have time to invest in time as well as money to teach myself or watch tutorials on. So it is very easy to stay in the comfort of the mediums that I already know and at least feel confident in.
Yeah. That actually, they probably exist, but like one of those YouTube unboxing like trial videos, but it's like, we're going to go through all these different mediums. Like, let's go to the art store and just try out every medium on this shelf and just like telling you which one. Because I know I didn't know about China markers for a long time until I just saw someone using it at a life drawing and it's like, oh yeah, here it is, try it. And it was just amazing. It was a good breakthrough because it was that blend that I wanted it to be. Before then, it was just like shivering in a corner, like, don't make me use the charcoal. Can't.
And then you get in your own head and you psych yourself out. Yeah. Oh, there's so much. There's so much out there.
Onward cinnamon. Onward cinnamon.
I feel that. So that leads into the next point really, really well. How do you work through an art slump, or if you're having a bad brain day and your brain is being cruel and telling you that your stuff isn't good or you can't do it?
So it's kind of like the Hulk, where the secret is I'm always angry. In this case, it's the secret is I feel like I'm always in an art slump. That sounds really pathetic, but I will probably never, without a lot of cognitive therapy, feel that my art is ever good. Like I'm always constantly doubting it. So that's something where it's just like a constant It doesn't keep me from drawing. It keeps me from posting. So I still draw a lot. And if I have an idea, I draw it down, and then it never sees the light of day. It just sits as one of the many files on my computer or in my sketchbook. So I feel like when people say art slump, I take that to mean a little bit different. I have issues where I can't physically draw, like my hand just isn't, hand-eye coordination is off for a day. So there will definitely be days or weeks where I just physically can't draw because no matter what I do, like I can't even draw an S curve. My brain isn't letting me. But then I also have ones where I know it's fine, but my brain won't let me think it's fine. And those are completely different days. And I have to handle those very differently. I have to handle those like very independently. A lot of times, if it's a specific art piece that I'm having trouble with, I have to walk away. I have to put it down for at least 3 hours. I've found for me is a good amount of time. It's enough time for me not to forget what I was doing and what layer I was on. Because if I wait too long, I'll forget that. But it's enough time where I can like do something else. Laundry, clean, make food. I can come back and I can reanalyze it and say, okay, why don't I like this? Is it the placement of the arm? Is it the hair? Is it the colors? So for me, if it's a piece, I'll walk away from it. If it's still not happening after 3 or 4 or 5 hours, I will put it away and go back to it like a month later if it's a really bad one. Or never at all. That happens too. But if it's a day where it's just like nothing is drawing, it's not specifically the piece that's bothering me, it's just my brain, then I can't draw that day. If it's something where I have a commission or something like that, I just suck it up. I do get those sometimes where I have a commission and it is due. And if I'm in like a slump, I just power through it. Like I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'll fix it later. Like I keep telling myself, I'll put that carrot in front of me and I'll say, I'll fix it later. I'll fix it later. I know psychologically I won't fix it later, but it lets me keep moving forward to pretend I'm going to fix it later. So that's probably a very unhealthy coping mechanism, but it works. But don't do it. Don't do it for yourself. But yeah, if I at least tell myself there's a way to fix this later on, like, oh, I'll get it done for the client today, but I'll give myself an extra day to dress it up before I post it to social media. Like that'll at least let me again get it done. I feel like if I ever mentally close the door on a project, that's the part that really slows me up. I always have to keep that door open. Like I can always go back and fix it. Like, yeah, I'll call this done, but if I want to make stickers or a print of it, I'll fix this thing. This is just for posting. Like, yeah, I always have to give myself that, if that makes sense. Again, probably not a healthy coping mechanism.
It does, but I think it speaks a lot to your credit that not only are you able to recognize that and recognize that about yourself and you have found a way to work through it, is that at no point in any of this or struggling with this has it stopped you from being successful in making art and having it as a career, which I count as two separate things. Being able to meet deadlines and get your client work done is an absolute skill and it makes you hireable, and that's a thing. But to still be able to personally create the art and find ways to do that works within, our crazy art brains, there is a lot of merit to that because it can be really, really hard to get past your brain. It is such an integral part of what we do that if it is working against you, it feels awful, and art doesn't feel good when that's happening. And that's, a lot of people will be like, so why do you keep doing it if you're unhappy? And I'm like, that's our madness. I don't know.
Don't call us out.
I don't know.
If you're unhappy. Who told you I was unhappy? I'm not unhappy. Table flip.
Yeah. So I think there is so much value in the fact that, if someone looked at it from the outside, they'd be like, oh, wow, it's super easy. Like she just powers through and she gets it done. Like being able to talk about the fact that like, no, sometimes I'm literally just lying to myself so that I can get this done because that's what I have to do. And at least for my aspect, I marry that with a overwhelming fear of failure and not meeting, like disappointing someone. So even if I hate everything and my brain is trash, like still have to get it done because I can't disappoint this person. Like, Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to kind of hark back to something that we talked about earlier, which was figuring out or being lucky enough to be in the companies or the projects that have directors and producers that will trust you and give you full reign of your project. There's equally that same amount, usually those good same art leads and directors will understand an art slump and be willing to like give you slack for it. Again, some of the companies I've worked with, the good ones, they completely understand, so they have flexible hours and they know that, okay, this artist was having a slumpy day, they didn't get their project deadlines done, day-to-day tasks, and they really didn't come in and work that hard for this whole week, but they're going to make it up next week when they are on track. And they make sure to always have meetings in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, because if you have a meeting in the middle, it breaks up the art flow. And they get art flow. They get when you're in the zone, don't break the artist in the zone. And they actually encourage that. They put the artists in the quiet corners of the building that get the sunlight, but also no noise. They make sure that the artists never have to go to meetings in the middle of the day. They make sure that artists, are watched if they didn't come to like clock out at a certain time. Like, you have to take a break. You've been sitting for 7 hours. I know these are ergonomic chairs, but that's still. So some of the good companies will do that. And they understand that art slumps happen and they'll give you slack for it. And then understanding that you're going to make it up when you're on that art high or whatever you want to call it. And those are the very fortunate companies. I have had those where just like some days it's just not happening. And then I've had other days where I just get everything done and it's like way ahead. I used to have this thing where I'd be sitting at my desk and it was usually my one coworker, Carlos. He'd always stop by my desk like, "Are you okay? Like, is everything all right with you? Do you need something?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. Why?" And he's like, "You look so pissed off right now." And it's because when I'm really in the zone, like I grit my teeth, I hunch my shoulders, I just like am laser focused on my computer. I think at the time I was modeling an environment or something on this specific time, but I do that. And I notice I do that now, like when I'm in the zone and I'll like feel myself tensed up and I have to just like, okay, I know I'm in the zone, but this isn't good posture. Sorry, this topic went way off track, but if you're in the slump, hopefully the company or the client you work for will give you a little snack. If not, exactly what you were saying, powering through it, people will acknowledge and praise you for powering through it, but it's hard. It's one of the hardest things is to power through when you have an art slump and you feel so burnt out and defeated afterwards. Oh boy, yeah. That burnout feeling is the worst.
It is because it somehow manages to like tamp down my hope and like my enthusiasm for art, which is not something that usually happens. Like I'm pretty jazzed about art, whether I'm making it or consuming it a lot of the time. But that like it just I think the Dementors are the best way to describe it. Like it just sucks out all the joy when you're in that slump and you're just like, I don't know how to feel art happiness right now. And I don't know what to do with that. So yeah, it's no joke.
That's a good way to say it. Sucks and you do have those moments like, why am I doing this thing that's making me so gosh dang miserable? But I imagine like a lot of other people who have a very specialized skill, like ice skaters and football players maybe have that too. Maybe I'm telling myself that to make myself feel better, that we're not, artists just aren't that unique of a breed. Though sometimes I feel like we are this like masochistic, why do you do art if you hate it? It's like, because I love it. I hate myself.
It's complicated.
I have a complicated relationship with art and my art specifically.
No, I think I have to believe that it happens for anybody else who is pushing themselves physically or mentally. Like I have to imagine that no matter how you're exerting yourself or how you're using your talents, like that, while it's not, Art Slump is a very easy word to relate to because it's one that's used a lot. But I think there's absolutely that in athletics, in even like finance or something like that. Like I have to believe that there are times where you're just like, I just can't see it. I can't make this work. I can't balance it out. I can't find the love for what I'm doing, even though I do enjoy it normally.
It's like that misery loves company. Like you want to think that this is a normal human experience that other people relate to and have solutions for, especially because even if someone in finance or football got out of their slump, that gives us hope to get out of our slump.
Yeah.
But yeah, art slump is real. Art burnout is real. I will admit powering through it and then taking long breaks. I will go months without drawing anything, or even longer if I need it. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that like I have that ability to do that.
I think, and that part of it is the being kind to yourself. You know, it's not spending that time afterwards just harping on yourself that you went through the slump or you struggled or you didn't make the most perfect piece of art. That it's okay. Like I need to be kind to myself because I'm going to beat myself up again on another project. And I need to, you know, not have degraded the foundation of it so much that I don't have anything to stand on. So I think understanding that you need time for yourself and giving yourself that space is incredible because it's hard to do.
And you bring up a good thing, kind of harkening back to students need to learn. It's also students need to learn not to hate on themselves, and an art slump isn't something to be ashamed of, but then taking a break after an art slump doesn't mean that you're a bad artist. It's just a recharge of batteries. I feel like a lot of other skills, it's easier to understand them taking a break, like a football player taking like, you know, a vacation to heal. Artists, we need to heal too. It's just a different type of healing, and you can only heal maybe by not drawing or drawing something completely different or drawing in a different medium that just breaks your brain out of its cycle. So I think, yeah, we forget we need time to heal. And there's a lot of stigma and a lot of guilt around artists who stop drawing for a while. I didn't like connect that until you said
it. It's good. It's why I like doing this. And I'm going to shamelessly plug this right into, you know, it's part of the reason why I pushed so hard with Doodle Crew is because I needed it. I needed to not be alone. I needed to talk to my artist friends. I needed to feel that creative like juice that you get from working around other people. And so that was my like, no, I need this because, you know, sometimes I'm not kind to myself and I've been left alone in the house for a year now. And like, I need other art people to talk to because I can't just do this on my own anymore. So
now it's getting harder.
Yeah. But so I'll say to that. So I know with some of the stress, you know, I'll bring up, we'll talk about what you like about Doodle Crew, but that was one where I know going into it, it was definitely like, I threw a lot of people into this. I was like, hey, I've been streaming, but nobody else has. How about you all do this thing with me? So I'm always very grateful for anybody who actually said yes. And we're like, okay, we're going to trust you and we're going to do this. So that's awesome. But like, you know, I'm hoping there's some parts of it that you enjoy. Yeah. Like, here we go.
Yeah, I have absolutely loved doing Doodle Crew. It's one of those things that I both panic and vastly look forward to any single time that there is a stream, whether I am on it or not. I mean, the panic comes when I'm on it. It's more just the enjoyment when I'm not, obviously. But it not only is good for the socialization, as you were mentioned, like just artists getting together and being artists, but also that deadline, that pressure of drawing and getting something done. As mentioned a few times now, I am aware of the type of artist I am because of my experiences. And one of the things that I most definitely am is I don't draw on my own. And if I try to set a goal for myself, they rarely ever happen. I need an outside force to set a deadline or a goal for me. And if that happens, I get it done without fail every time. I just can't do it for myself. So Doodle Crew is like, okay, here's the theme, here's the time, and I'm like, okay, here, I can do this. And then not only that, but within the Doodle Crew itself, there's a time limit. So I can't focus on the inking or the coloring for the entire 18,000 hours that I would normally. I have to get it done in like 3 hours. So I have been vastly grateful for Doodle Crew for giving me that structure, because I know I need that structure, and there isn't that structure for personal art for me outside of commissions, and even then it's not the same sort of structure. And then also, like you said, the socialization. I remember I went with actually Sarah, Will, and Randall Wiley in Pittsburgh one time. I went to one of their group meetups, and we all met at a coffee house, and we were drawing. And while we were all doing this, I was just like, this is so nice. I love this. It was like the enjoyment of sitting in a coffee house, all of us having sketchbooks out, drawing together, was like enough to seriously make me contemplate moving back to a main city just so I could have this experience, because where I live now, that is not a possibility for me. So it was just like, do I want to move back to Pittsburgh? Maybe I should I get that apartment in Manhattan? Like, just because I want to have friends, like a Friday night friend meetup at a coffee house just to draw, like that level of socialization made me realize I really need this. So then you came in with Doodle Crew shortly after that, and I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to buy that. I don't have to move. I mean, even if it's on like webcam, it's still something. It's great. I love it.
Yep. No, I love that description, because like there, and I've talked about it a few different times, but there is something very special about what we had when we were all working in like the animation lab together and talking to each other and joking with each other, and so often had nothing to do with what we were drawing, but it just lets your brain have a little bit of fun. And then we get crazy ideas, and you talked about the tutor lab, like we would draw crazy stuff on the whiteboard and make silly things, and didn't mean anything to so much silly, didn't mean anything to anybody else, but it delighted us to no end. I was like, that's special, that's incredible.
The amount of like scraps of paper, or like you said, whiteboards, or just like shouting at each other in the cell labs, the animation cell labs, just ridiculous things. Yeah. Or helping each other. Can we give a huge shout out to Tutor Lab or Cell Lab or 3D Lab, just sitting there and calling a friend over, like, does this look right? What do you think of this? Is my jump animation right? And they'd say, no, you need 2 frames here, or you need more squash. Just that fill-in of like, because now I want someone's critique of my art, but everyone has their own life. Everyone is out doing their own thing. And I send them like, hey, can you critique this? And they're like shopping, and they're like, okay, not in the right mindset for this. Or they're busy, like people have their own lives. So I miss that too. I miss helping each other, like the full-on critiquing. And that, I think, also made me, the lack of that made me more self-conscious with my art. Which is an epiphany I'm just now realizing. This interview is giving me a lot of epiphanies. Don't know if that was the goal. Yeah, weird therapy session. But yeah, just kind of realizing that that lack of community, like you said, throwing out funny ideas, the ideas themselves having no consequence to them. They're just silly ideas. But we would draw them out. But now it's like everything you draw has to mean something, and has to be something that's marketable or sellable, or has to be finished, and you can't just throw out a silly flour sack like whiteboard drawing anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, we lost a lot.
No, that giving yourself permission to just make silly art is not a thing I ever thought I would have to like purposely integrate into my life. I was like, no, I'll always make silly art. I love drawing, on like napkins and stuff like that. But I was like, no, as soon as I started beginning to work as a commercial artist and use art as my main income, anything I'm sketching, I'm like, well, could I turn this into a print? Could I turn this into a sticker? How can I monetize this? And while there are great aspects to that, there is also now everything is the grind, and you are never not on duty for that. So to show up and was like, nope, we're drawing something. We are drawing fruit smashed up with animals today. Will I ever use this again? Probably not, but I don't care. And for 3 hours, I don't have to care because the product, the whole part of it is people watching me create this art. That's the final goal. Like, and that's enough that if I never look at this piece ever again, it doesn't matter because I was just here to make the art. And yeah, being able to give yourself that permission is, again, therapy I didn't realize that I needed. Like,
right?
okay.
But I like that though. The product is the process of making the art, not the art itself. Like, we'll post the art and share the art, but that's not what it's about. And yeah, I think that's a really great reason, obviously, for Doodle Crew to exist, for Twitch to have this sort of avenue, but also just super healthy. Like, again, the process, not the final product, and freeing. Wow. Okay. Do younger people feel this level of like heaviness at this? The realization feels so old now. It's like one of those metaphysical like wisdom things that you only realize after you reached enlightenment. Like the process, not.
Yep. And like you just want to take like the younger students and grab them and be like, you need to understand this. And they're looking at you like, yeah, we definitely can't understand this. I'm like, I know you can't, but I need to share this. Yeah.
Or it's as much as I say, like, yeah, students, they need to be patient with learning. They need to realize that they can't learn all this right away, that they need experience to like gain this sort of insight. I also constantly have to remind myself, they're kids. I'm only who I am because I went through what they did and I made the idiot decisions they did. And I have to recognize that that was part of my process too, was making those wrong decisions or thinking that I was one way and I was the other. So it's like I say we, I mean, this is a me thing. Like I constantly have to remind myself like, okay, they can't get this yet. Not because they physically can't understand it, but it's like, it's a rite of passage sort of thing. The ones that do get it are going to have it so much easier, but the ones that don't get it right, it's okay. They'll have the time to get it right. There's still time. Even if you're an artist now and you still haven't gotten it, that's fine. Like, take your time.
No. I think that's a huge thing. And it's so good to hear you say it out loud because I need to hear it sometimes. Because I look at, my age on paper and I look at how much art I haven't done or how much art like the early 20-year-olds are producing. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You've wasted so much time. But I was like, nope, it's okay. You're still doing cool stuff. You are still valuable. You are still creating art. And there is no wrong way to do this. And you need to be nicer to yourself. So.
You're sharing my internal monologue. You're sharing all of my. All right, so I'm gonna. I know that the interview is probably getting a little long, but I have a good little story. It's not my story to share about this topic. Exactly what you were saying with being kind, with like, as you're getting older, not producing enough. And this was, I believe, by an artist. She's an artist and an author, Ursula Vernon. Big fan of her. If anyone knows her stuff, she's a children's book author, but she started as a traditional artist. So she had this really great analogy, and I'm going to condense it massively. And it was about artist hell. And the idea of artist hell is that, you are in a long corridor, a long art gallery, and all the art you've ever produced is hanging up in this gallery. And it's a nice gallery, and there's cheap cheese and wine being paraded around, what have you. And you and your deity of choice, angel, devil, what have you, some sort of afterlife deity, Anubis, who cares, is walking with you and going through each one of your art pieces and critiquing it. And both you and him are critiquing it, and he's giving you his thoughts, and they go through every single piece until it gets to the end of the gallery, and you are at the very last piece you created before you died. And there's just this stretch of corridor that is completely empty. And all the deity does is turn to you and say, that was it. And it was just like, oh. And that's artist hell. Artist hell is just being told, really, that's all you made? That's it?
No, that's exactly it. Oh my gosh.
There you go. I give that nightmare to you now. Again, not mine. Ursula Vernon made that. She wrote this really beautiful little short story. So if you're interested, you can probably find that on her blog. But yeah, that is her artist hell analogy. And it hurts me every time I think about it.
Well, I don't want the hurt. I definitely don't. But I think there is incredible value.
Shared pain.
Shared pain, yes. And there's so much value in people talking about it and sharing that. And I think I was so appreciative of artists who would speak honestly about struggles or things that they learned or things that they went through, and just not only the feeling of not being alone, but it's okay. Like, oh, so this thing that I'm terrified of, it's not just me. Other people are very scared of this too. It's something that plagues all of us. Like, I need that information to be out there. And I think sometimes, even though the internet is so vast now and there's so much information, I think it can still be very isolating, and you can still feel like you are the only one having this personal art experience. Like, no, there's no way. Like, I see these people posting all the time. They're content creators. They just create content. And I think when artists are willing to be vulnerable and expose, like, fess up to, like, I'm struggling or I need a break because this is what I need, I think that's so important, because it not only humanizes the art industry as a whole, but it gives other people the permission to be like, okay, oh, okay, it's not just me. And I think that's tremendous. So, yeah.
Same. So different side of that same coin. Not only that it is a common shared experience, but also, because again, I grew up with a more fine art education growing up. So I, of course, my mother being a huge fan of the Impressionist movement, grew up with like these horrible stories of Van Gogh and Dali and like all the experiences. And I thought, oh, I can't be an artist unless I have some sort of tragedy, or I have like art equals, or pain is the motivator for creating beautiful art, like that sort of thing that is really prevalent in fine art, if I might be so blunt as to say. So same thing with what you were saying. The opposite is, you don't have to be, you're not damaged, you're not traumatized, you're not this horrible experience. Your experiences, if you are feeling depression, aren't Van Gogh levels of depression. It is a normal, easily copable, very relatable experience. You're not beyond saving like some of the other like artists that are out there were, and you don't have to have that sort of trauma to become a great artist. So definitely I took it a much darker side than you did, but I also think that that's important to know, is like, no, it's not that bad. There's help to find, and this is copable, and people are here to help and that understand it. So you're okay, and it'll be okay.
I really, really like that. Not only are you 100% not defined by your trauma, because that's an incredibly important thing, but also you don't have to have that heaviness and have that be the only way you make great art. Like, that is not a prerequisite. You don't have to carry that burden. And if you don't want to draw from dark parts of your life and you just want to make happy, fun art because that's the new phase of your life, that's totally valid. Like, there's nothing that says that you have to be one thing as an artist and that has to be, dark and tortured. You can be whatever you want. And, they talk about different artist periods in their life and stuff like that. Like, that is still a valuable thing, even though I feel like sometimes it moves faster now and there's not as much appreciation for, like, oh, this is when they were like, this is their high school period, and then this is their college period, and then this is when, oh, this is when YouTube happened, and like now we see what like. So I think there is growth and there is change that is available, and even if for a while you tapped into the darkness that you were going through and use that as art, there is also that can be done. You can set that aside, you can close that door, and you don't ever have to make art from that place ever again. And that's okay. So, yeah.
Thank you. You said it so much better. You kind of what I was trying to say, but you said it so much better. Yeah. You can choose what you use as motivation. It doesn't have to be the old additive of like, draw what you know, and if all you know is negativity, it's like, no, then draw pink sparkly kittens drinking lattes. That's great. Art can be a distressor, and that's it. The content of the art doesn't necessarily have to show the reason why you were drawing it.
No,
So,
this
yes, you
this
said
has
so
been
much
awesome.
Thank you.
No, it's good, and
This is very different.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, and I so appreciate you going real deep with me on this, because I, again, not where I ever think things are going to go, but but I think it's so important, and I'm so happy.
Childhood.
But yeah, if people want to follow you, support you, do more stuff, like see more of your art, you know, maybe even chat with you or take classes with you, where can people find you? How can they contact you? What's the best way to do that?
So pretty much still Instagram, although like I said, I don't really post that much because lots of self-confidence issues on that. But yes, Instagram is still like I check it periodically, you know, see if people have messaged me or to obviously like and comment on other people's. So Instagram's still going to be the main. I do have Twitter and Tumblr, where people can find me on there. There is a link to my link tree on the Instagram. So if you're interested or prefer Twitter or Tumblr, I'm there as well. I also check those daily. Just gotta work up to that daily posting or even weekly posting confidence level. That's all.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna probably be where I'm located.
That's awesome. Well, I know I'm super, super excited. Like having the interviews has been awesome as our little hiatus went on, but I am super excited to get back into Doodle Crew and having more live episodes. And I can't wait to have you on and make some more art with you. So yeah. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you
so thank you.
This has been so fun so far.
Yay. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and catch us again for another interview. Goodbye.